I feel like DC is in such a weird place right now. Like, supposedly Blue Beetle is the first entry in the James Gunn and Peter Safran DC universe, but we still have Aquaman 2 supposedly coming out later this year. What is going on? What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Blue Beetle, which again is the latest DC Universe film. I've been pretty disappointed with comic book movies in 2023, with a few exceptions like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The trailers for this didn't really do anything for me. Basically, the film stars Jolo Maridueña. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I don't watch Cobra Kai. I know I should probably check that out. But he plays Jaime Reyes, a recent college graduate struggling to keep his family afloat as they fight against gentrification in their fictional hometown of Palmera City, Texas. Susan Sarandon plays this really douchey biotech CEO of Cord Enterprises. They eventually get a hold of the alien scarab device that we see in the film, and by a series of contrived events, Jaime winds up having this thing integrate itself with him. Visually speaking, it's sort of like the symbiote from Venom mixed with the Iron Man suit. It's not really made of organic material like Venom is, but it is sentient and it's able to choose its host, which it does in this case. And look, I didn't have high expectations for this again, and to give the movie due credit, it does have one thing that I really appreciate, and that's heart. More than just being about Jaime, this movie is sort of about his entire family, and that dynamic really works between him, his parents, his grandmother. It's just a lot easier to care about the characters when the stakes are a little more grounded. In this film, it's not really a giant world-ending cataclysmic event that we're at risk of here. It's really just this one dude trying to protect his family and do the right thing. I appreciate that. I mean, the cast definitely elevates the material because I do think the dialogue in general is pretty bad and a lot of the jokes are just kind of so-so. I mean, George Lopez plays the uncle here, Uncle Rudy, I believe his name was, and he's really funny. He's great, and you can tell it's George Lopez just letting his inner comic come out. He's just this really quirky, entertaining character who's kind of a loose cannon and a bit crazy too. It's just the type of thing that I find really entertaining to watch. Bruna Marquezine was another standout as Jenny. She's the love interest in the film, but does have a bit more going on under the surface, and just I didn't expect the characters to have much depth, and I'm glad that they did get some. And Jolo Maridueña, generally speaking, is pretty good too. At times I felt like maybe he was portrayed a little bit too childish. Like, this dude's supposed to be college grad age, and sometimes I felt like they were going for more of a Peter Parker vibe. Kind of a nitpick, but at times I found him to be a little bit annoying. I know that might be kind of a hot take because usually when these comic book movies come out, the one thing that everybody universally praises is the star-making performance of the lead protagonist. And again, I'm not saying that he was bad, just a little bit too childish at times. End of the day, performances were pretty solid. And one thing that I want to say is that generally speaking, there are three big things that I look for in modern comic book movies. First of all, an interesting story, innovative or distinctly unique direction, and heart. Where Blue Beetle certainly excels with its heart, I do think it severely lacks in the other two categories. First of all, let's talk about all the inconsistencies in logic in this film. The actual Blue Beetle that creates the suit around Jaime, the rules are completely inconsistent with it. Sometimes he's able to control it, other times it's in complete control of his body, and he's not really doing anything. And I think that sort of hurts the movie too. When you know it's not the character themselves doing the things, it's just this alien symbiote that has full control over him doing it. But the morality of these characters gets really murky at times as well. There's a moment in this movie where he's fighting someone and he has the opportunity to kill them and eliminate the threat, and he chooses not to, and it seems like it's going in a Batman direction here where they're trying to say he doesn't kill. Meanwhile, other characters that are very close to Jaime just wipe out people with no regard for the loss of human life. Again, it's in self-defense, so it's not something that really bothered me that much. It just doesn't feel like they put too much thought into some of that. Another problem is that things just happen spontaneously in this with no explanation whatsoever. Apparently the Scarab's power can be harnessed by simply downloading its code onto a hard drive. I don't think that I really buy alien tech being utilized like that. In movies like this, I know we're talking about superheroes and aliens and magic powers and whatnot, but I need a set of rules to adhere to so that things don't feel like they're just spontaneously happening because the plot needs them to. In terms of other story issues, Susan Sarandon is just playing the most generic, uninteresting villain I've seen in a comic book movie in so long. And again, it's not really her fault. I just think the character is terrible. Her henchman, played by Raul Trujillo, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, he had potential to be quite possibly the most interesting character in the entire movie. Towards the end, we're given a flashback into his backstory, and it's brushed over so quickly, but I feel like there's potential there to have a really fascinating villain, and instead we get this stupid, annoying, rich biotech CEO character that feels totally unnecessary in the grand scheme of things. Moving back to my third big ask when it comes to modern comic book movies, visual or distinctive directing style. This movie doesn't really have much of that. I do like some of the color grading, lots of blues and neon purples. I like that, generally speaking, but the fight scenes, they all play out the way you expect them to. It's not visually inventive in any way. And just to give an example of what I mean by this, look at something like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That movie does have a lot of story issues, but what really stood out about that to me is that it feels at its heart like a Sam Raimi movie. When you look at the directing style, when you look at the quirks that he brings to the table, and all of the unique and campy camera angles. Here there's nothing distinctive. It just feels like a made-for-TV comic book movie. I don't think the special effects were ever as bad as they were in The Flash, but a lot of the action sequences take place at night, which I feel like is kind of cheating because shadows and darkness, generally speaking, can hide bad CGI pretty well. I don't know, ultimately all of that heart that the movie had built up well into the second act, it kind of just threw out the door in the third act in favor of another generic big CGI boss fight between our main character and another character who happens to have very similar abilities that were obtained through these same means. And I'll forever be shocked by the unchecked potential of this other character that he fights, this henchman. The soundtrack was cool, I will give the movie that. And lastly, I know that Blue Beetle as a character does have its share of niche followers out there. I've personally never read the comics, so I don't know how well this encapsulates the feel of the source material, but for me, it's just too forgettable to recommend. However, I tend to have really weird DC takes. For instance, I really liked The Flash, and even Black Adam to a certain extent, and this is by no means the worst comic book movie of the year or anything like that. That honor still belongs to Shazam! Fury of the Gods, if you ask me. Blue Beetle started out rough, it got a little better towards the middle, and then it just sort of fizzled out like a lot of these films tend to, and I don't see myself ever revisiting this. There's just nothing really distinctive about it. So I'm gonna give Blue Beetle 2.5 out of 5 stars. If you're just super bored this weekend, it's something to see. It's not terrible, and maybe you'll like it more than me. So those are my thoughts on what I guess is the beginning of the new DC universe. Not a super promising start if you ask me, but again, this movie was made well before James Gunn took over DC, so I don't think we should judge it too soon. As always, be sure to let me know down in the comments what you think. What do you make of this whole situation? Are you excited for the new DC universe and James Gunn's take on characters like Superman and Batman? As always, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.